The Detroit Lions showed the Baltimore Ravens and the rest of the NFL that two running backs is always better than one. We'll discuss it in just a second.
The barbershop is open and Tony Wiggins has a chair for you. He's ready with some real NFL talk. The local experts of Locked On bring their expertise, and Wiggy is ready with his clippers and shears. Sit down and enjoy. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
That is a fact. It is your team every day here on Locked On NFL. We thank you for making us your first listen. I am Tony Wiggins, the host of The Barbershop, the second of two NFL shows here on Locked On NFL. We're glad to have you here today. Shout out to the everydayers that join us each and every day. We appreciate you. And if you're new here, we won't take your time for granted. We'll welcome you right on in to Locked On NFL, where we use the help of local experts from around the National Football League to keep our finger on the pulse of the team like the local experts do here on our network. And today it is Tuesday, so that means Kevin Ostreicher from Baltimore, from Locked On Ravens is here. And I know, Kevin, we're going to get to you and your team here in just a second, man. It is always hard for me to do this. It's not hard for me, though, to go to FanDuel, because today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Also, if you're flying on a plane, can't watch or listen wherever you get your podcast, read the newsletters at Locked On Podcast /newsletters for all of the latest information from the Locked On Podcast Network. And also, we would be remiss if we did not allow you and let you know that you can listen to Locked On NFL. We appreciate you listening to it, and you can follow our show and hear new episodes ad-free daily on Amazon Music. So make sure you go on over and check that out. All right, here's what Ostreicher and I are going to do. We're going to end the show talking about Brian Daboll. Is he done yet? Some people in New York probably thinks he should be. There are two teams whose host said this. This is the worst loss in the history of this current regime. I'll tell you in the middle of the show who those two teams are. But we got to start with the Detroit Lions, and they played bully ball. They returned to bully ball and executed against the Baltimore Ravens in a way that I hadn't seen a Baltimore Ravens team get dominated. Kevin, the floor is yours, sir.
Oh, there was a game. There was a game last night. Again? The Ravens have only played one game this season. That's pretty crazy. We're through 3 weeks. They got 2 byes this year. Man, I'm telling you.
That Buffalo game was a figment of our imagination, and so was the one last night, huh?
I know.
Didn't happen. Well, let me tell you who said it did happen. Matt Derry, my man from Locked On Lions. Matt Derry, look, I'm going to talk about the dynamic duo. Those two running backs are the truth. I think Matt's going to say something about that. Check this out.
How about those Detroit Lions? A Monday Night Football win on the road in Baltimore tonight, 38-30. Matt Derry, Locked On Lions. Heck of a performance tonight from Detroit. And it all started with the ground game. The offensive line absolutely dominated Baltimore and opened up holes for Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. Montgomery over 150 yards rushing tonight. Lions defense sacked Lamar Jackson 7 times. A dominant performance from the offensive line, the defensive line, Al-Qadim Muhammad. And the Lions pulling out some trick plays. John Morton did a great job as offensive coordinator tonight. And the Lions improved to 2-1, a big road win, ending a 5-game losing streak to the Ravens. More on Locked On Lions coming up.
It looks like we had questions about the coordinators that had to be replaced for a couple of weeks. The team didn't quite look right. It seems like they got it together last night against what I think is a really good Ravens team, with the exception, of course, their defensive front seven.
Yeah, look, these are two contenders. One team played like it last night. And, the box score says, it was only an 8-point win for the Lions. But no, I mean, look, got to give Detroit credit where it's due. The Lions came into Baltimore and just dominated the Ravens in multiple different aspects and took the wills of the Ravens defense. Up front is where it all starts. And, with what Detroit brought to the table, and their run game really wasn't great in the first part of the game. Jahmyr Gibbs had like 11 carries for 19 yards, and, Montgomery was finding some room to run, but it was kind of few and far in between, but the Lions worked the play action game pretty well. They found Jameson Williams and Amon-Ra St. Brown in spots. And the thing was, the Ravens just could not generate pressure on Jared Goff, and Goff had all time to just pick apart that defense. And then so the Ravens had to then kind of adjust to that. And as the game went on, you could just tell, 295+ yard drives for that Lions offense last night. It takes your souls away. If you're a defense, the Lions snatched the souls of the Ravens defense. And this Ravens defense right now is tied for the worst defense in the league in terms of points allowed with the Dolphins. You don't want to be in a category with the Dolphins in any sense right now. So that's a tough decision. That they have tough decisions ahead for the Ravens, but Detroit, I give them a lot of credit. And it's something that multiple people said over the course of the last 24 hours here, 12 hours as we're recording this, is that the Ravens and Lions both were 1-1. They both had starts to their years that they wish they could have had back. And Detroit, particularly because of that loss to Green Bay in week 1. Detroit sat there, and you can tell, they sat there and said, this is not who we are. This is not who we want to be. And they clearly went out there and showed that this is what we want to be. This is who we want to become. And over the past 2 weeks, they've shown that week 1 game was an anomaly, and this is more the team that they are.
Yeah, there's a few things. We're going to stretch this all the way to the end of the first segment because there's too much meat on this bone to leave it. I'm just concerned for Baltimore. First of all, when somebody says, "Well, Baltimore's being exposed," yeah, you can expose them all they want. They lost to Buffalo and they lost to Detroit. Okay, it ain't like Carolina Panthers or Arizona went in there and beat them. So you can talk about them being exposed all you want to, but there's about 27 teams that don't have a chance to beat them. I don't care. You can give them a 38 and a baseball bat. They ain't going to have those results. The problem is against those 4 or 5 teams that we're talking about, Baltimore keeps losing the same way. And that way is star players making critical mistakes when they shouldn't. And uncustomarily, it's not customary to see them struggle with the offense and defensive lines and be out toughed. Derrick Henry and the fumbles. At some point, it's not going to stop until it stops. Is there a bigger problem here with Baltimore and you see something that can't be fixed during the season?
I think it's fixable during the season, but they're also kind of in very stressful territory because this is a team now that is 1-2, and the disappointing part is all offseason in Baltimore, it was apparent that this was the best roster that the Ravens had put together in the Lamar Jackson era, maybe the best roster in their history. And they're still having things like this happen. And look, they didn't have their top pass rusher, Nnamdi Madubuike. Isaiah Likely still hasn't played. Pat Ricard's a big loss, but every team deals with injuries. And so I find it hard to say, oh, well, they're just injured. They're just injured, which is true. But every team deals with that. And it is what it is. I think the Ravens have shown us over the years, unfortunately, and this is the narrative that they've crafted for themselves, is that in these moments sometimes, and this is more of a playoff thing, but they've shown it so far 2 times in the regular season through 3 weeks that they'll just get in their own head. They'll get too cute. And the Lions actually gave the Ravens multiple opportunities to win that game last night. That was horrible clock management by Dan Campbell at the end of the first half to give the Ravens the ball back to put up 7 points after the Ravens gifted the ball to the Lions for being too cute on the offensive side of the ball. Brian Branch drops an interception and the Ravens go down and score on that drive. They had opportunities, but Detroit just said, no, we don't care. We're going out there and we're taking your will here and we're making sure that you do not get back in this game. And, you talk about it as a potential Super Bowl matchup here, but the Ravens, again, they have a lot of soul searching to do because, you got that week 4 game against the Chiefs coming up. One of those teams is going to be 1-3 after that game, unless there's a tie, which please no ties. I don't like ties.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. But Detroit has told everybody that thought that they were dead and gone and that the Packers were going to run away with that division. Wait a minute, hold my beer. I want y'all to hold my beer for just a second because we're going to come back and tell you about 2 hosts of certain teams that said that this is the worst loss of their regime that they can remember in quite some time. And they both said it independently without knowing that the other one said it. We'll get to that in just a second here on Locked On NFL. All right, today's show is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Caffeine just got a flavor upgrade. 5 Hour Energy shots deliver tasty caffeine in 17 bold flavors each. 2-ounce shot packs, the caffeine of a premium 12-ounce coffee, plus B vitamins and nutrients with zero sugar, zero crashes. What I love most is how portable they are. Big taste, tiny shot, and you can take it anywhere and get the boost you need. I'm telling you right now, man, I love me some flavors. They got some pineapple, man. I would love some pineapple. I love me some pineapple or some strawberry, especially when it's going to give me the boost I need sitting in front of this computer all day. I know. Enough with the boring, flavorless caffeine. It's time to give your caffeine a flavor upgrade with 5 Hour Energy shots. Get the favorites you love or be bold and try something new in store and online at www.5hourenergy.com or Amazon today. Here with my man Kevin Ostreicher from Locked On Ravens. We talked enough about the Lions and the game that the Ravens did not participate in last night, according to Kevin. Kevin says they only played one game this year. We're going to move on now to two teams that said that they had the worst game that they've ever seen, especially from their current coaching staff. We talked about Detroit, and we also mentioned Green Bay, who everyone thought was the team to beat, until they go out and lose a game to Cleveland the other day. And my man Peter Bukowski, just like he talks so fluently about their victories, he's going to talk the same way about their gaffes. And here he is right now from Locked On Packers.
The Green Bay Packers just suffered one of the worst losses of the Matt LaFleur era. I'm Peter Bukowski, host of Locked On Packers, and it is a 13-10 disappointment. It is embarrassing, and it is on Matt LaFleur. This team was not ready to play. It's the second week in a row. There were too many penalties. It was sloppy, disjointed. They were way too scared of Myles Garrett, and they played scared. They played scared from the jump. Also, the special teams. What is going on with the special teams again? Rich Bisaccia stealing money for the millionth consecutive season for the Green Bay Packers. It seems like because every year it's, Rich Bisaccia, he's going to help. It's going to be fixed. It's going to be better. And it's not. You get Brandon McManus for these moments, and then you can't block it up. The Packers should have had the game-winning field goal here. Instead, the Browns get the game-winning field goal here, and that's the part that also should have never happened. The Packers get the kick blocked, and then they let the Browns mosey down the field. This is a defense that had locked up the Browns all day. They play soft. They let the Browns come right down. The pass rush disappears. And all of a sudden, you're losing a game you have no business losing. This has to get the Packers' mind right, headed forward, because this is not good enough.
He said it best, and it was a long clip, but I let you hear it all because I couldn't cut any of it off because it all connected so well. The Packers played like a team that knew they were playing Cleveland, and then it feels like by the time they realized they were in a dogfight, they had already been bitten by the dogs in the dog pound.
Yeah, and this is the classic, like, oh, you're so favored in a game, and like, there's no way you lose this one, and this is the easy pick in the survivor pools or whatever. Like, that's one of those games that, like, there's no way the Packers lose this, right? But that Browns defense, and I know, look, watching the Ravens play that Browns team in week 2 and watching what they were able to do to Lamar Jackson, that Ravens offensive points, like, that Browns defense is for real. But, this is a loss that is, you might look back on it in December or January if you're Green Bay and think, hey, we're like one game out of like the 2 seed or like a wild card, like the top wild card, or maybe for the division. Man, would have been really nice to have a win against the Browns in week number 3 in a game you probably should have won. And I know that there are multiple different plays you can point to, multiple different areas of the team. Peter talked about that, but it's disheartening, especially because like this is one of the clear favorites in the NFC right now. And man, they're losing to the Browns of all teams. And I love me some AFC North. We can rag on some AFC North teams in here like the best of them. At least I know I can. But at the end of the day, the Packers are going to have to bounce back from this one in a big way because you can't. And it really is like in every week league. You have to be able to move on from losses like this. But the fact is that Cleveland team is going to play spoiler for the entire year for teams with that defense. It's not just, oh, hey, week 18, can Cleveland stop, the Bengals or the Steelers or the Ravens from making the playoffs? They're going to be that annoying team, I think, that teams know they're probably going to beat, but there's always that outside shot like we saw, and moments happen where the inevitable comes, and the Browns are a team in that defense that's going to go out there and make it difficult for you to win a game. You got to go out there, play the full 60 minutes, even if you're super favored in a game like Green Bay was.
I warned everybody. I said, listen, they are playing hard. And the one thing that you can never discount is a great player. And I know there's 53 and 53. There's 106 dudes out there. But when out of 106 dudes, when that one guy, Myles Garrett, is the best player on the team, you kind of lean into that a little bit if you're them. And even Michael Parsons said, all right, if you want to put one dude above me in the league, that's the only one I'll concede. And they were the two best players, but yet and still, the impact of one guy shows you. The other thing is, we talked about Stefanski and the handling of the quarterbacks and how bad the organization is, this, that, and the third. Mason Graham played well the other day, and that's the dude that they got in the draft where they didn't take Travis Hunter. And the other thing that happened is they continued to play well and play hard, and he's getting absolutely everything out of his team, and he has to be given credit. But you talked about that game, that if you're the Packers, you look back. Last year, there was a team that looked back. They had a bad loss early in the year, and then last year, the last week of the season, they actually played the team that they were going to have to beat in order to make the playoffs, but they didn't. They didn't beat them because something else didn't happen. Do you remember who that team was? It was the Bengals, right?
Yeah.
The Bengals. They lost an early game at home. I think it was against the Patriots or the Raiders or somebody. He was like, that's going to bite them. And that was the one game that kept them out of the playoffs.
Yep.
And speaking of the Bengals, they got something else in common with the Packers. The Packers, Bukowski said that this is the worst game that they've had. Listen to Jake Liskow from Locked on Bengals.
That was the worst. No, actually, I think the worst Bengals game I've watched in my life. Dominated from start to finish, accentuated by 5 turnovers, and right when things might have been turning around, right when the Bengals had a chance to make it 10-17 going into the half, scheduled to get the ball out of the half, they turn it over for a fumble 6 that instead of 10-17 makes the game 3-24, ending the game on the spot. I'm Jake Liskow from Locked On Bengals, where we will have you covered with all of the takeaways from this one that have many Bengals fans thinking Zach Taylor's seat should be hot. We'll talk about everything that went wrong in this one and some of the more worrisome trends we've been picking up on here through 3 weeks of this Bengals young season.
Nobody's going to give him a mulligan because Jake Browning is in for Joe Burrow, because Jake Browning beat the Jaguars in a game that they were losing when Joe Burrow got hurt. But one thing he did in that game, he had 3 turnovers, 3 interceptions in the second half. He continued that trend to turn the ball over. And now the Bengals, even though they were 2-0 with Burrow hurt, now they're 2-1, and all of that optimism is out of the window.
Man, we should give them 2 losses for that game on Sunday, man. That was something else. Hey, it helped the Ravens too, so I'm not opposed to it. But the Bengals, the writing is on the wall here. I mean, it just is, and it has been. This is why you listen to Locked On NFL, because how many times have I come on here, Wig, and said Zach Taylor needs to be gone? How many times have I come on? It's him and Daboll. I know we're gonna get to Daboll in the final part of the show, but those are the 2 guys that I've just been like, these teams are hindering themselves. And yes, Joe Burrow's injury, you can't really work with that if you're the Bengals. Like, there's not really any coming, even with, if Jake Browning goes and has this incredible season, like, he's not Joe Burrow. Like, he's not. But there's been too many games like this, and there's not an excuse for the way the defense has looked and, these turnovers. And you can just tell, like, it's a team that, without Joe Burrow out there, just kind of looks lost. And, they needed magic against the Browns to get that win in week 1, something that the Bengals have never been able to do. And under Zach Taylor, it's the Bengals right now need to look in the mirror and understand that with the trio, when healthy, of Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins, they have a shot, but you can't just win with 3 players, 4 if you want to count Trey Hendrickson. And it's ridiculous to me that they haven't done more to protect Joe Burrow. They haven't done more to improve that defense. It feels like they're just complacent. Hey, we have these star players. That should be enough. Fans like that we have star players. But it seems like they got to that Super Bowl and we're just like, all right, we're cool. We're good.
Yep. This is exactly what happened. We're going to get on Brian Daboll. You mentioned him. They got some things in common with those Bengals. We'll discuss that in just a second here on Locked On NFL. Today's show is brought to you and presented by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready to kick off with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. That's right, just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. That's right. A $5 bet wins, your first one, and you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love it, man, because you get a chance to get data. You check in on what's going on. You read up on it on the FanDuel site. So you absolutely have a pathway to make sure you put some money in your pocket, right? So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. All right, third and final segment here on Locked On NFL, where it is your team every day. It could be your team every day, twice a day. Check out Tyler Rowland early in the morning. The madman will wake you up like a double shot of espresso and get you all caught up on everything from around the National Football League with the use of local experts. And you can come back here in the afternoon, right where you are now in the barbershop with me and my man, Kevin Ostreicher, here on a Tuesday. We mentioned the Bengals a few minutes ago and how they made a coaching change, fired Lou Anarumo, and now Lou Anarumo is in Indy with the Colts, and they're undefeated, and their defense is playing lights out. There's a similar situation. The biggest indictment of Brian Daboll to me is the fact that those same Indianapolis Colts now have the quarterback that the Giants invested a whole bunch of money in, and they're undefeated. So maybe the indictment on the Bengals is you fired the wrong coach. And then with the Giants is you still got the wrong coach because that quarterback that couldn't play for him is thriving somewhere else. Here's Patricia Trainer from Locked On Giants. It's a little long clip, but I want you to check it out.
The New York Giants found another way to lose, dropping their third straight game, this one to the Kansas City Chiefs by a score of 22-9. That means the Giants now are 1-9 at MetLife Stadium over the last two seasons, and the loss also marked the 14th time in their last 20 games, dating back to week 1 of last year, that the Giants were held to under 20 points. And therein, ladies and gentlemen, is the story of this latest letdown. The Giants' offensive brass had zero answers for what old friend, Chiefs defensive coordinator Steve Spagnuolo was doing to them, and in particular to receiver Malik Neighbors, who was held to just 2 receptions on 7 pass targets for just 13 yards. Russell Wilson struggled quite a bit, looking in fact more like the quarterback he was in week 1's loss against the Commanders than the guy we saw last week against the Dallas Cowboys, who threw for over 400 yards.
All right, so the question is, when do they go to Jackson Dart, and is it going to be any good that they do that because Brian Daboll is still the coach?
Well, I think they need to do that yesterday. Yeah, I think yesterday is when they need to do that. And I don't know if it does any good for Daboll. I mean, Daboll to me, it's Daboll and Taylor. I'm telling you, Daboll and I guess McDaniel are the 3 coaches that to me are not going to have jobs by the time the season is over.
Hold on now. You're forgetting about one in Tennessee. Brian Callahan's on his way too.
And we just heard that he's heading off play calling duties now. So they're trying stuff in Tennessee, but for Daboll and this Giants team, again, I don't know why he was retained. I feel like it could have been a fresh start, but this kind of feels like the ushering in whenever it happens with Dart of a new era. And it's crazy because the Giants have talent. I said this on a show I was on a couple days ago. I think in like 2 to 3 years, the Giants can be really, really good. You know, if Dart can be who I think a lot of people hope he can, you have Scatterboo, obviously Malik Neighbors, you have talent on that defense too, a couple of really good players. I think if they just can continue to add in the trenches, get a couple of receivers to put opposite of Neighbors and you know, maybe a tight end in there, like I think they're going to be really good if Dart can be him. But I think what you need is to get Dart that experience. Now that's different between just throwing a guy into the fire, not ready at all, and just watching him flounder out there, kind of like what we've seen the Colts do with Anthony Richardson in the past, and making sure a guy's ready. So I don't have problems with teams starting veterans to start the season for a couple of games, just to, hey, this is how you do things, this is how you work, and this is that. But the teams like the Giants and the Browns and some of these, like, we know Joe Flacco's not the long-term answer at quarterback in Cleveland. We know Russell Wilson's not the long-term answer at quarterback for the Giants. I think it's time, especially with what we saw, that sequence from Russell Wilson down in the red zone against Kansas City on Sunday night, and everybody's like, what in the world are you doing? What in the world are you seeing out there on the field? I mean, it give the fan base a little bit of a jolt too, a little bit of excitement. And I think that Dart showed that flash and that potential. It's not going to be perfect, but I think for the Giants, anything's better than what Russell Wilson's giving you right now.
And we just mentioned a bunch of coaches that are on the hot seat. There's a name I'm going to add to this list for a different reason that I did not anticipate having this conversation for. I just never crossed my mind. And that is DeMeco Ryans. And the reason why is because their front office and a lot of their coaches, it seems like they all came from the general manager, Nick Casario. And they got all of these Patriot people surrounding DeMeco. And I think it just doesn't seem like a great fit. But Houston finds themselves 0-3. Some of that is the third loss came at the hands of a certain team down in Jacksonville, Florida. But listen to John Hickman here from Locked On Texans.
The unforeseen has happened. The sky isn't falling, but the sky has fell as the Houston Texans start the season 0-3, losing to the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm John Hickman of the Locked On Texan podcast, your team every day. It was a rough watch for the Houston Texans offense. And defensively, I mean, they did everything they possibly could. A late turnover by Jalen Petrie. You even see C.J. Stroud finally connect for a touchdown with Nico Collins. But penalties, miscues, bad communication, the continuing of starting drives, third and long, second and long, continues to hurt and hinder the Houston Texans.
Houston's bad. I saw them firsthand. The Jaguars should have been ashamed of themselves letting that game stay as close as it did, but they won. And because that's usually a game that the Jaguars lose, and it was tied, and they actually made a couple of plays at the end of the game to cement the victory. But Houston is a shell of themselves, and I'm starting to worry about C.J. Stroud as a franchise quarterback. I think he has just as much to prove as a whole bunch of other people that we always criticize, whether it's Jordan Love, Trevor Lawrence. C.J. Stroud is dead center, front and center, in guys that need to actually raise their play in order for this team to get better.
When I was little, I used to like going to the zoo and seeing penguins, right? And there's a movie about penguins called Happy Feet. That's what C.J. Stroud has in the pocket right now. He has Happy Feet in the pocket. You like that, Wig? Look at
I love it. I had to take my glasses off.
You're like, where is he going with this one?
Where is he? You talking about some zoo and some penguins and some Happy Feet. I said, what the hell Ostreicher talking about? But I got you now. I feel you. I'm tracking with you, bro.
And that's what I'm talking about, where when you have an offensive line as poor as C.J. Stroud has it right now, and you trade away Laramie Tunsil, and you don't really do a lot to replace him, and your O-line has been, whether it's hurt, just not good, not invested in, you're signing guys off the street to try to revive their careers. It's been an issue for the past 2 years for CJ here in a big, massive way. And so, yes, CJ himself does deserve blame for what's going on. And, he hasn't progressed from year 1 to year 2 and year 2 to year 3 like he's needed to. But I'll just keep saying it. I talked about it with the Ravens in the first part of the show with their O-line, which, by the way, the Ravens offensive line, 30 pressures they gave up to the Lions in week 3. You can't work with that if you're a quarterback, regardless of how good or how much of a veteran you are or what year it is. It doesn't matter if you're the best quarterback in the league. If you have that pressure in your face like that consistently, it's going to be really tough for you to establish momentum. And look, the progression is something that needs to be talked about here. And I hear you totally about the fact that, is he the guy for the Texans? Is he a franchise quarterback? But that Houston team right now, they, in my opinion, have failed CJ Stroud with that offensive line, because when you start not being able to trust your offensive line, you're getting Happy Feet in that pocket. That's it underlies a lot of bigger issues that are going on.
Happy Feet, Penguins, the zoo. My man got a haircut and he's just coming with all the
I'm
quick
letting it
stuff
fly.
today. I know you're letting it fly, man, and you can check him out, letting it fly every single day on Locked On Ravens. Also a regular here every Tuesday on Locked On NFL. It's a twice-a-day show. We appreciate you joining us here today. We'll be back with another episode tomorrow because the word every day, your team every day, that means every single day here on Locked On NFL. Thank you for joining us for 30 minutes. We don't take your time for granted. We enjoyed it. I hope you did too.